Welcome to Big Shiny Stories, a series about the wildest, weirdest, and most chaotic things I've built in the name of art. Every episode is a breakdown of one of my installations and the lessons I had no choice but to learn while trying to hold it all together. This one is about a massive art installation I created for Pharrell's Something in the Water Festival in Virginia Beach. At the time, it was the most insane 3 days of my career. I showed up with a vision, a giant reflective maze made out of inflated silver spheres, right in the middle of the beach, between the two main stages. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it turns out, everything. It was the biggest project I'd ever attempted, and I walked into it full of confidence, ambition, and absolutely no idea what I was doing. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 real lessons that I learned the hard way. Ones I think apply to any creative person trying to build something big in public. The 4 lessons. 1, say yes before you're ready. 2, you can always make your price lower. You can just never make it go higher. 3, people will always find a way to break what you thought was unbreakable. And last, when it comes to nature, prepare like the sky is falling. Now let's get into it. The entire project started with one word: yes. The kind of yes that makes your stomach drop before the email was even sent. So say yes before you're ready. This all started with an intro through a studio friend. The festival team had seen some of my smaller inflated works and asked if I could do something way bigger for the center of the beach. Now, I hadn't designed anything of this scale before, not even close. I didn't know how to fabricate it, ship it, install it, in the sand no less. I had no budget in mind. I didn't have a crew. All I had was an idea in my head and the sudden realization this could be a turning point if I didn't screw it all up. And so I said yes. Then I went and started Googling wind loads and tent anchors like my life depended on it, because honestly, it kind of did. So here's the truth. You're never gonna feel ready for that next level. That's why you call it the next level. Saying yes before you're ready forces you to become the person who can actually pull it off. And if you don't scare yourself once in a while, you're probably not growing. By the time I arrived in Virginia Beach, I had a giant circular ply base waiting, 60 feet in diameter, right between the two music stages. I had dozens of boxes full of silver inflatable spheres and a rough 3D model of a maze that I created on Shaper 3D, and zero idea if it would all work. I also only had about 2 days to install it, so I did what every artist does in this situation, pretended that I was in control. Lesson 2, you can always make your prices lower, you can almost never go higher. The second they said yes without hesitation, I knew I priced it wrong. This is my first real deal. Travel, lodging, production support. I even got a crew, which felt incredibly luxurious after doing everything solo. I put together a quote at the time, felt big, like I was finally leveling up. In fact, it was probably the biggest dollar amount I'd ever asked for. Then they accepted it, instantly. And at that moment, I knew I'd probably undercharged. But the lesson goes deeper than that. It's not just about value, it's about leverage. Once you quote a number, you can always go down, you can negotiate, you add value, toss in extras, but you can never go up. Once that number's out there, it's the ceiling, no matter how wild the project gets. And this one got pretty wild. By the end, after freight, shipping, fabrication, anchoring systems, last minute fixes, emergency run to the hardware stores, my margins were mostly gone. It looked like a high profile job, and it was, but I barely made a profit. So here's what I learned. Always price with the worst case scenario in mind. Build in cushion, add buffers, be prepared not to discount, and if they accept the quote without even blinking, that's your size to raise your prices next time. It's not about being greedy. It's about being able to do the work again. Sustainability is the strategy. Lesson 3, people will always surprise you. I built a sculpture, they saw it as a jungle gym. The second the gates opened, it was game over. The plan was simple. An immersive maze made of massive reflective spheres set up like a dreamscape in the sand. People would walk through it, take photos, soak it in. It was meant to feel surreal, serene, elevated. Instead, it became interactive in the worst possible way. People didn't just engage with it. They climbed on it, they pushed it, they jumped on it, turned it into a group activity. Some of the spheres were stacked in ways that, I'll admit, looked a little like stairs. And once one person climbed it, everybody else followed. Within an hour, we had to shut it down. I found myself in full crisis mode, cutting down sections, repositioning spheres, removing anything that looked even remotely climbable, reinforcing every joint, and we eventually rebuilt the layout in real time. And that's the thing about public art. You're not always in charge of how it's used. You can guide the interaction, but you can't control it. And sometimes the interaction is the lesson. People won't always respect your boundaries or read your signs. They won't always treat the work like the way you imagined it. But if you build it with that in mind and you leave space for some of that unpredictability, you'll be standing when the rest of the dust settles. Lesson 4, prepare for the storm, then over-prepare. We brought a giant fishing net, kind of as a joke, or at least we thought it was a joke, until the storm actually hit. This installation lived on a beach in spring during a music festival, and still, somehow, I underestimated the wind. From the minute we started inflating the sculpture, it became clear that we were dealing with forces way beyond our control. These 10-foot mirror balls weren't just sculptures, they were sails. We'd inflate one, turn around, and it'd already be halfway down the beach. To make matters worse, we tried inflating 5 at a time. As one could expect, total disaster. It was like herding beach balls in a wind tunnel. Fortunately, I thought ahead. In the back of my mind, I knew that if a real storm hit, we'd be in trouble. So I brought an industrial fishing net, massive, heavy-duty stuff. Break glass in case of emergency. The plan was to cover the whole sculpture with it, anchoring the net to keep all the spheres from flying all over the place. And of course, we had to use it. The night before the festival opened, the wind picked up and not a breeze. Gusts over 40 miles an hour. So we hauled out the net, climbed onto scissor lifts and threw this thing up over the entire 60-foot sculpture, like we were wrapping a planet-sized sandwich. And it actually worked. That was until the last day, when a tornado warning shut the festival down and we couldn't get the net back on in time. The wind came roaring in, tore through the site, and we watched helplessly as a bunch of the giant 10-foot balls broke free, one actually rolling past the barricades and straight into the ocean. It floated off into the distance. And luckily, or maybe not so, there was a nearby Air Force base. A police officer actually came over and deadpanned, "We're pretty sure the Air Force is going to use that sucker for target practice." Honestly, that was probably the best outcome. So that was something in the water. My biggest project, steepest learning curve, and honestly, one of the most rewarding things I'd ever done. I walked away tired, slightly scraped up, bruised, and a bit sunburnt, and completely re-energized. I pushed myself way beyond what I thought I could do, undercharged, overbuilt, and still got outsmarted by the wind and a few overzealous festival goers. But I would do it again in a second, because that's what big shiny stories are all about. Saying yes to the unknown and learning in real time and somehow making it look all intentional by the end. Thanks for watching, and get ready for the next one, because they get even crazier.